Magandang araw po sa lahat. This is Reporter 8 and I'm going to discuss about bankruptcy. And under bankruptcy, we have voluntary and involuntary insolvency, presence of creditors, classification of credit, suspension of payments, and discharge. Okay, so proceed tayo sa may introduction. Bankruptcy is a legal status involving an individual or business unable to repay outstanding debts. This presentation covers key concepts under bankruptcy, including voluntary and involuntary insolvency, the role of creditors, and the implications for financial management and debt resolution in credit and collections. Bankruptcy fundamentals. We have voluntary insolvency. So, voluntary insolvency occurs when a debtor proactively declares that inability to pay debts. This is often a strategic decision to seek legal protection and orderly bankruptcy proceedings and work towards recognition or liquidation under the law. Okay, so in other words, voluntary insolvency, the debtor initiates the petition to declare himself insolvent. So siya mismo nag-admit na hindi niya kayang mag-pay ng debt. Ganun. So purpose to gain legal protection from creditors and reorganize or liquidate assets in an orderly way. Ang key features ay filed when the debtor cannot meet obligations as they fall due. Debtor admits inability to pay, often used to prevent harassment and uncontrolled collection actions. Ang importance niya ay allows the debtor to obtain courts, protection, and possibly negotiate payment schedules. Okay, next. Involuntary insolvency. Involuntary insolvency is initiated by creditors when the debtor fails to meet obligations. Creditors petition the court to force bankruptcy proceedings to recover debts. This mechanism protects creditors' rights and ensures accountability for unpaid liabilities during insolvency situations. Creditors file a petition to declare the debtors insolvent. So, hindi yung debtor ang nag-file, yung creditors. Na pinagkaiba, yung pinag-utangan. Siya yung nakapansin na medyo pang he's not or she's not meeting yung pag-usapan na magbabayad and na-observe niya siguro na hindi siya makabayad. Wala siyang pambayad. So, si nag-uutang, yung nagpapautang, yung mag-file na hindi makabayad si umuutang. Purpose to prevent the debtor from fraudulently disposing assets or avoiding payment. Ang key features are usually filed when debtor commits an act of insolvency. So, ano yung mga yun? Absconds, hides property, unpaid obligations, yung mga yun. Requires a minimum number, value of creditors to support petition. Jurisdiction dependent. Importance, protects creditors collectively and prevents preference of one creditor over others. And difference. Okay, summarize natin. So, who files? Debtor. Kapag si debtor, voluntary yun. Pero kapag creditor, ano siya? Involuntary. So, voluntary, self-admission, in-admit niya, mismo siya yung initial na nagsabi na hindi niya kaya magbayad. Okay, so involuntary, si creditor, yung nagpapautang, yung nag-file na hindi kaya bayaran ni umuutang, yung or ni debtor, yung utang niya. Okay, so next. Presence of creditors and their role. Creditors play a crucial role in bankruptcy proceedings as they influence the outcomes of the debt resolution. Their presence ensures accountability and oversight during insolvency. Creditors can file claims, vote on reorganization, and affect the debtor's ability to repay. Their involvement is essential for a fair and structured bankruptcy process. So, they are the individuals or institutions to whom the debtor owes money or obligations. Insolvency is fundamentally a debtor-creditor process. Creditor claims determine priority of payment, vote on rehabilitation plans, approval of liquidation plans, and so on. Creditors are classified usually into three, and those three are secured, unsecured, and preferred. We're gonna get there mamaya. Okay, so ang role nila ay to file claims against the debtor, trigger involuntary insolvency, which is napag-usapan natin in the last slide, participate in meetings, negotiations, and payment distributions. Trabaho nila to ensure kung talagang hindi kayang bayaran ni debtor yung debts niya. Okay? Okay, so proceed tayo ngayon sa classification of creditors. So, creditors are classified based on the priority of their claims. Okay, earlier in this slide, in this report, we talked about secured, unsecured, and prioritized creditors. So, secured creditors have collateral backing their claims, while unsecured creditors do not. Prioritized creditors, such as employees or tax authorities, receive preferential treatment in repayment during bankruptcy distribution. Okay, so ulitin natin, secured credit, back siya ng meron siyang collateral. So, it may be mortgage, pledge, chattel mortgage, mga ganon. Creditor has priority to the collateral over other creditors. So, low risk siya kasi nga may collateral, lower interest rates din siya. Second, yung unsecured credit, so no-collateral siya, relies solely on debtor's promise to pay. So, dun lang siya nagre-rely. Medyo risky. Examples, credit cards, personal loans, and riskier, higher interest siya. Diba? Parang sabi niya sa'yo, mahal ka, pero doon ka lang nagre-rely, hindi actions. So, next, preferred credit. Credits given priority by law, regardless of whether they are secured or unsecured. Examples, taxes, wages of laborers, claims for funeral expenses of the debtor. Okay, so, importance of classification determines order of payment in liquidation, helps courts distribute limited assets fairly and legally, affects creditor decisions whether to join insolvency negotiator and for securities. Next. Suspension of payment process. Suspension of payments is a temporary halt on debt obligations initiated to reorganize finances under court supervision. It provides relief to the debtor, preventing asset seizures or lawsuits. This pause facilitates negotiation with creditors and may lead to a structured payment plan on debt discharge. A legal remedy wherein a debtor who still has enough assets or solvent pa siya, sabihin natin, but is temporarily unable to pay current obligation asks the court to suspend payment deadlines. Ang purpose niya ay to avoid insolvency by giving the debtor time to recover liquidity, allows restructuring of payment without full bankruptcy proceedings, and ito, keynotes. Usually requires approval from a majority of creditors in number and amount. Debtor must not be totally insolvent. So, mas madami siyang assets than liabilities. Does not necessarily discharge debts, only reschedules or restructures. Importance, protects viable business or individuals from immediate collapse. Balances debtors' temporary difficulty with debtors' right to repayment. Next. So next we have discharge and its implications. Discharge releases the debtor from personal liability for certain debts, legally forgiving them after bankruptcy. It allows for a fresh financial start but may negatively impact creditworthiness. Not all debts are dischargeable, and the process depends on the bankruptcy type and court rulings. So, a court order that releases the debtor from all or certain debts, wiping out legal obligation to pay. The purpose is to give the debtor a fresh start, after liquidation, to allow economic rehabilitation and productivity. Key features: granted only after debtor complies with insolvency processes. Full disclosure of assets, surrender of non-exempt property, honest cooperation with the court. Some debts cannot be discharged, example, taxes, fraud-related debts, and child support, and so on. Importance: final step in bankruptcy proceedings, ensures fairness, debtor gets relief, creditor get distributed assets, encourages economic renewal instead of permanent financial paralysis. Okay. Finally, conclusions. Bankruptcy balances debtor relief with creditor protection through structured legal frameworks, understanding insolvency types, creditor roles, payment suspensions, and discharge conditions, vital for effective financial management. Sound knowledge aids in navigating bankruptcy proceedings and minimizing financial disruptions for all parties involved. So that's it. Yun lang naman po. I hope meron po kayong natutunan, and God bless the kids.